Vikings, Buccaneers. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this bitch. So let's do the picks real quick. First, we got a game in Tampa Bay. Buccaneers favored by 6.5 right now, but that's like super juiced. So I think it's going to go up by the time this video gets out to 7. So I'm just going to go with Buccaneers favored by 7 and the over under set at 52.5. So that's where I'm going to start. Incredibly strongly, I feel the under on this game, 52.5. That is nuts. When I saw that, I couldn't quite believe it, to be honest with you. And as far as the spread goes, I would actually end up very weakly on the Bucks -7. Not worth betting on, but that is the side that I would end up on. But as far as the money line, though, I'm very confident that the Buccaneers are going to win this game. So I think you talk a real good. The Bucks win and under 52.5. And stick around. I'm going to tell you why and how that's how it go down. So first we got the Vikings offense versus the Bucks defense. So injury wise, right now there's actually some concerning things with the Vikings. They have 3 linemen who are questions to play in this game: Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, Riley Reef, all limited or not practicing, all the way up through Thursday. As well as Kyle Rudolph, who hasn't practiced all weekend, starting tight end, and Irv Smith, who's been out the last 2 weeks, who is still not up to speed yet in terms of practice. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and guess he plays, but I'm not positive. No, I'm going to go with no Kyle Rudolph, though. And as far as the offensive line goes, I'm assuming that Garrett Bradbury is going to play and that Ezra Cleveland is going to play. Probably just going to, I think for the purposes of this, because it only gets worse from here, right? I'm going to go ahead and predict it as if they all play. And then on the Bucks defense, Jamel Dean, starting corner, has not practiced all week, and Steve McClendon and Jason Pierre-Paul have also both had some practice issues. I'm going to assume they both play, actually, but yeah. So offensive line versus defensive line. Man, this is tough for the Vikings. So the Vikings in certain matchups, right? They have this really lean, athletic, lateral agility, excelling. Fucking bad sentence. Offensive line. They get to the sidelines pretty well. The Bucks don't let that shit happen. So the Bucks defensive front is super strong and near dominant in the run game. William Golston, Raheem Nunez-Roches, and Stephen Clendon and nose tackle, and Dominican Sue, and even more so with Vita Vea Selvi. It's been a while now, but here you're just not going to see an advantage in the run game for the offensive line for the Vikings. They're going to get dominated on the interior very consistently and like control the defense tackles from doing whatever they want. Now I will mention that that's not a huge deal with the Vikings. They more depend on the state of the edges and the linebackers because they just run away from the interior a lot. But it's going to get ugly. So the edges, Bucks edge defenders, run defenders, very good. Jason Pierre-Paul, very good. Shaquille Barrett, not quite so much. He's better than all right though. He's more than serviceable. And Brian O'Neill, really good out there. Vikings right tackle. Riley Reeve, just okay. And it is definitely not an advantage for the Vikings here. So then you talk about the second level. And listen, the Vikings, right, so they run one of these sideline to sideline stretch zone schemes. And the Buccaneers have literally the like perfect linebackers as far as the current NFL goes to stop that. Levante David, Devin White, both very good, very fast in the case of Devin White, and they're going to be able to root out a ton of what the Vikings do, like early in the play. Now, I'm going to give credit to the Vikings that their scheme is good, and there's going to be some chances for Brian O'Neill, Garrett Bradbury to get out into space and get in the way of those guys, but it's not going to be anything consistent. Whenever they do, then they're talking about leaving like these subpar guards one-on-one with defensive linemen that they can't handle. So that shit going to get ugly. So then you talk about the overall run game, and like I said, I'm going to give the Vikings a little bit of benefit of the doubt in terms of Dalvin Cook being easily the second best running back in the NFL. Chris McCaffrey's the first, and he's going to create yards because he does every game that he ever plays in. But it's really similar to like what you saw when the Vikings played the Bears, where they just don't have a reason to be fucking good as far as running the ball goes. So you talk about the pass game, and here, so the first thing you look at with Kirk Cousins, right? So he's one of these few players that has. I have a list of like advantages I keep track of that are you can't overlook them because they just so notably affect how a player plays. And one of them is Kirk Cousins facing legitimate interior pressure. He's just a complete disaster. You've seen it when he played the Bears consistently, especially before this year. They were injured when the Vikings played the Bears this most recent time. But like last year when they got destroyed by the Packers and the Bears, when they got killed by the Colts early this year, Kirk Cousins cannot handle interior pressure. Now, without Vita Vea, the Bucks' interior guys aren't quite the dominant pass rushers. William Golston, though, still pretty damn good. Dom Kitsu is still good. So that's a really, really limiting issue. Um, and just something that, yeah, you just can't bet against because time and time again, it's just shown to be a complete disaster. And then on the edges, I mean, it's not nothing. The Vikings tackles are not perfect pass blockers by any means, and Shaquille Barrett, um, he's fine, right? Like he's nowhere near as good as the sack leader last year. But if he's going against Riley Reef or Riley fucking doesn't play, then it's even worse. He's gonna be able to get pressure. Now against Brian O'Neill, he's honestly I don't know if I'm gonna go quite as far as shut down, but Brian O'Neill deals with that type of rusher very well, like the speedy edge rushers. And on the other edge, Jason Pierre-Paul, reasonable edge rusher, not crazy. But I do want to mention here, Anthony Nelson, his backup that they've been playing for a while. I mean, since the beginning of the season on the Bucks, he's pretty good. He's better run defender than pass rusher. So I probably should have mentioned him there. But I just want to point out that even if Jason Pierre-Paul doesn't play, they actually do have a little bit of something on the other edge. So you talk about the receivers. And here, this is the Vikings' effectively only hope. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are incredibly good. And Carlton Davis, good corner for sure. And against certain types of receivers, he can be like even better than pretty good. But two things. One, he's not so equipped to deal with like quicker or like technical route runner type guys, which both Vikings receivers are. And two, I don't know what the hell happened to the Buccaneers defense. So, well, I do. I don't understand why. So it started it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Maybe it was even a little bit more than that at this point. And it was against the Saints versus Drew Brees, where they had the whole beginning of the season been playing this like lockdown man press coverage with. I mean, they were throwing variety in there for sure, but they were doing it and it worked like well. And then something changed, and they came into the Saints game. Maybe it was the game before that, and I think they played the Buccaneers. I don't exactly remember the timeline, but I mainly remember it in the Saints because I couldn't believe they did it. And they went from what they were doing to a like soft, simple zone with these like shut down like press man. I couldn't believe it. And they're as we saw them last before their bye week, they were still doing it. Oh god! And if they do it again, listen, that just takes away everything that Carlton Davis is good at, basically. And even if Jamel Dean plays, like I said, actually he's not practiced all week, so I don't know if he's gonna play or not. They're not good corners in that scheme. They're still better than a lot of other players, but like that completely takes away what they're good at. And in that case, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen would be like borderline dominant in terms of being open. Um, Now, again, I don't know if they're going to do that now that they've been through a bye week. Maybe they realized how fucking stupid that is. But I just want to mention that because that's a really big something unknown that you're going to see early on in this game, whether they're doing it or not. So you talk about the quarterback, and again, I mentioned Kirk Cousins cannot handle interior rush. He just panics. He does the dumbest shit. He'll throw a bunch of terrible picks or should be picks. He'll get sacked, like just getting breathed on. It's just ugly. And that's going to be really really notable here. Now, if he's not pressured, if for whatever reason the Bucks, only bring like a 3-man pressure or something like that, then Kirk could be pretty good in this game because, like I said, the receivers are going to be open enough to like drive consistent offense if they could get the ball. I just don't think that's going to be the case. And I'll mention too, there's chances deep. Antoine Winfield got super overhyped during the first whatever it was, like 4 weeks of the season because the Bucks played nobody who could capably throw the ball deep. And the first time he got tested, who was it against? Was it? No, it was way before the Packers game. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly. I'll come back with it in like the review or something if I remember it. But they played someone who legitimately throws the ball deep, and shocker, he was not good. And that's continued ever since then. Whenever they say play somebody who has like the ability to throw the ball deep, he's not very good. I shouldn't say that. He shouldn't go that far. He's fine, but he's not a shutdown player, like not even close. So you're going to see there's chance of the Vikings deep. Now, overall, the pass game, again, is going to be mediocre, I think, at best, just because their fucking offensive line is going to be a disaster, especially pass blocking in this game. And they're not going to be able to run the ball well enough to compensate against the front seven. So I have them at 10 to 17 points, and that's because the Vikings do have a pretty high floor. And I think if they're down late in the game, and the Bucs start playing like shitty garbage time defense, they could get there. If you talk about higher than that, though, I think it's going to require on the other side of the ball the Buccaneers being really bad, which I don't think is going to happen. Speaking of Bucs offense, Vikings defense, injuries, some concerning stuff. So on the Bucs offense, Mike Evans hasn't practiced all week. I do not know if he's going to play. And Donovan Smith actually has had some practice issues too. I'm going to go ahead and assume he plays. They're starting left tackle, but just some kind of note. So like Grunt might be out, that I don't care about. On the Vikings defense side, though, too, Eric Kendricks missed last game, getting pulled pre-game, and I think he's going to miss this game too with I think it's like a hamstring injury. And Jeff Gladney, their good, like legitimately good rookie slot corner, may be out. So you talk about the offensive line versus defense line. This is just a fucking bloodbath for the Buccaneers with a healthy offensive line, especially in the interior with Ali Marpet back, who's like one of the best guards in the NFL by far. They're gonna fucking kill them. Like they're gonna push them 5 yards off the ball effectively every play on the interior. Vikings defensive tackles terrible, and on the edges, I mean the Vikings do play reasonable run defending edges, but the Bucs O line is for real. Especially rookie right tackle Tristan Wirfs, and they're gonna be able to like push them off the ball consistently. On the second level, without Eric Kendricks, the Vikings linebackers are not good against the run. Eric Wilson is like a super like replacement level player. Todd Davis showed just last week that he's not like against the Jags team, who's just like a worse version rushing wise of the Buccaneers. That he can't stand up, he can't handle it really, not over a number of snaps at his age. And Troy Dye I like is like a backside reserve linebacker, but he's not going to make a difference here. The safeties help, but their overall run game, I mean, it could get to like dominant levels. They could go off this game. Ronald Jones, especially, I mean, it can get pretty bad. Pass rush or pass game then too. I mean, there's gonna be no pass rush from the Vikings. Not a single player on the Vikings defensive line can beat the Buccaneers offensive line outside of Alex Kappa, by far the most vulnerable member of the Bucs O line. But the closest the Vikings have is Hercules Mataafa. Not going to happen with any level of relevancy. The receivers. Now here I'll mention Bucs receivers. I think I look at them very similarly to the Seahawks receivers as far as not actually being all that good at separating, especially early in a play. Especially Chris Godwin. I mean, neither of them are bad by any means. They're both fine, but like they are nothing compared to like the receivers on the other side of the ball as far as like separation goes, which really limits their like ability to drive possession, which is I think the most important thing there is in football generally. Close with some other things, but here you're going to see that Cam Dantzler is good enough to limit them, and Chris Boyd pretty good too. But over the course of the play, both Cam Dantzler and Chris Boyd struggle at the catch point. Mike Evans, I mean, is for real there, and Chris Godwin is good enough to get some separation. I'm not going to say he's shut down by any means. And Antonio Brown is going to. I mean, Antonio Brown's still fantastic, incredible, all that stuff. You see him open constantly if you watch the Bucs. Jeff Gladney or not, he's going to be open all the time this game. So it's going to get ugly too. So you talk about the quarterback, and this is why I consider the under so strong. Tom Brady has shown very clearly this year in Bruce Arians' scheme that he like does throw the ball deep a lot. Now, and I'm sure if you've watched, you've seen all these like goofy stats about him throwing the ball 20 plus yards in the air and being like incredibly unsuccessful. Well, this is not the game that fixes that. There's gonna be, I think maybe there was flashes of it. Like I said, Mike Evans like down the sideline contested catch, sure, but the Viking safety is still very, very good, and Tom Brady is gonna have trouble like fitting the ball into areas where they can't affect it. His arm strength is just okay at this point, and you're gonna see that the safeties are gonna be really big playmakers here. And Tom Brady's shown even in situations just like this where he's at a ton of advantages, except for the safeties being good, that he's still going to attack downfield, and it's probably not going to be that successful. Which is why I think the overall pass game is just going to be like okay, is it like maybe gets to like decent levels, but wide receivers aren't true drivers of possession or offense. without great advantage, except for Antonio Brown. But he doesn't run deep as much, and Tom Brady can miss him. And there's just issues. Now, I will say that the complete lack of Vikings pass rush really raises the floor for the Buccaneers. And once they get to the red zone, you're also talking about Tom Brady and a team that can rush the ball very well. But I actually only ended up with them as a point spread at 20-27. Now, they could get higher, I guess. But you just look at the matchup here, and I don't really quite see how that happens. The Bucks have shown that even given good advantages, they're not that good. The Vikings defense is nowhere near as bad as people think it is, and the over/under set is a super high number. It's in the 50s. So, and there's a chance the Vikings score in the single digits. I think it could look really similar to the game when they played the Colts earlier this year. So I'll take the Bucks -7. I guess I wouldn't bet on it because if one dumb thing happens, if Harrison Smith gets pick six, then that's fucked. But the under is great. I mean, unless the Bucks I don't know. I just don't quite see a pathway for that to get over under almost any circumstance. Um, and as the Buccaneers win, I don't see how the Vikings could really possibly win this game unless Tom Brady throws 6 interceptions, which is not going to happen. So yeah, under 52.5, Bucks win, and then Bucks -7, and that is Vikings Buccaneers.